appointment today. Well, let's just dive right into it. I've got a very special guest on the pod this week, Spectrum News 13 superstar Luke Hetrick, joining me today at LH Sports TV on Twitter, bringing on Luke today to go over everything that we saw over a very long weekend with the college football landscape and all of that. So, Luke, exciting to get a chance to talk to you. How was your weekend? How are you doing?
My weekend was great. You have a very loose definition of superstar, but I appreciate it. No, great weekend, something that we've been waiting for, obviously, for a while. I think from Thursday to Monday, just nonstop being able to soak it all in. It was fantastic, and I cannot stress enough, and I know you'll probably talk about this, having fans back at college football games. Now, we've seen it with the NBA playoffs. We've seen it with baseball a little bit, and we're going to see it in the NFL. But college football is just a different animal. It hits different. I was in Tallahassee Sunday night. Wow, there is nothing like it. It was surely missed.
I haven't been to a packed Doak Campbell Stadium in many, many years. We can go pre-pandemic. I haven't been there in a long time. But, yeah, just watching that on TV and knowing that you were there, and I was excited to reach out and get a chance to talk to you about it because that was just electric. And there are a lot of storylines that branch off of that. So we'll get to all of that. I do need to ask before we get into the heart of the college football discussion, what is going on at Spectrum News 13? Because now you've got Pat Welter is gone, John Alba is leaving, and now Luke, you're like the BMOC. You're the big man on campus. You might have already been the big man on campus, but now you are at the top of the heap, my friend.
Only by weight was I big man on campus. But no, it's an exciting time with Spectrum Sports 360. John Alba, Pat Welter, they're going on to new ventures. They're very good people, incredibly talented at what they do. I wish them nothing but the best. And still obviously going to be very good friends with those guys. It's not like we're the Eagles where we're never going to talk again. No,
is that what happened? You guys broke up?
Yeah, we all broke up.
Too many egos in one room.
Too many egos. But no, they're good people. We have still a great staff. We have Bree McNaught, who's an excellent storyteller. And we recently just made an addition. We've hired Marissa Silvis, who is a great sports talent as well. So a lot of changes going on. Pat and John are fantastic at what they do. But Spectrum Sports 360 at News 13, still going strong. We're in the heart of college football season. NFL starting. It's going to be really fun.
So does this mean more assignments for you? Does your plate get more full if people step away? I know you. There's some divvying up of different responsibilities now.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm weird like this, where the more stuff you pile on my plate, I kind of want that, and it's a really exciting time. You know, I'm not the main person by any means, but I'm just, I guess, senior on staff, so it's just more responsibility for me. So it's a lot more knowing the nitty gritty, picking up a different beat that I didn't have before. In no way am I going to know the ins and outs of wrestling unless I steal Alba's phone. And I go to a gym where every professional wrestler goes
to. That's it. You just start striking up conversations with them. You're over here working out with Braun Strowman and stuff.
No, Braun Strowman. One day, I will say this. One day we were working out side by side, just different machines. And I asked him if I could borrow a plate, and I didn't know whether I was supposed to call him by his wrestling name or his real name. And I chose real name. And
I definitely would have gone wrestling name.
And it was kind of like, he didn't get mad, but he was like, yeah, sure. Like, did you
was
really
he confused that you knew what his real name was?
Yeah, and he's like, who's this nobody asking me for my real name? Because I said it wrong.
My autograph too, kid.
Well, and talking to Elias, I was like, do you go by Elias, or like, what's your grown-up name? He was kind of like, it's Jeff, but yeah, you can just call me Elias. So
I've had Elias on the pod. He's a really cool dude. I did not know what to expect with him.
He's a great guy. He's from Pittsburgh, from Plumboro, and I'm in the same studio as Elias. I've never seen a human stretch more at the gym than him.
Really?
Oh, he'll stretch for like 25 minutes.
I was surprised when I asked him about his character and all of that. He's like, yeah, I always envisioned that I would be Shawn Michaels. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to wrestle for more than 2 minutes at a time to be Shawn Michaels. I didn't want to say that to him, but career trajectory. I don't know if that's going in that direction, but he is a superstar and
he is
friend of the show. So I'm a big fan of Elias, and he
Name
looks
drop.
like Macho Man Randy Savage. As much as I can, I will milk that as long as I possibly can, Luke.
As you should. You should. And we'll do the pod live at the gym one day.
That would be great.
That's what we should do.
Just some clanging and banging in the background.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, baby.
All right, you ready to talk some college football?
Oh, especially with you. Let's go.
So, well, we'll start here. Where did you go to college? Do you have I mean, I know that you cover this from a work standpoint.
Mhm.
We all do try to remain as unbiased as possible when we're covering this stuff. But do you have a school? Do you have a football team that you follow as a fan?
Well, if you ever want to visit the Pine Bowl, that snake pit in Loretto, Pennsylvania, where the St. Francis Red Flash play, that is my alma mater, the second smallest Division
I'm
I
gonna
school in the
nod like I
country.
know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Flash fam. Flash flood warning. No, I grew up in central Pennsylvania, so always been a Penn State fan. So in Pennsylvania, you have it's usually the combo of Penn State and Steelers. That's how it goes. So grew up on Saturdays watching Joe Pa and the Nittany Lions and was psyched about what they did this weekend in Wisconsin. Didn't think that was going to happen, but a massive win for a program that I've always felt under James Franklin is very much momentum based. So getting a win early in the season, I feel like the trajectory this year could be pretty good.
Is their defense really that good, or is Wisconsin's offense the most vanilla offense maybe in college football?
It's vanilla, but when you got to play at week 1 and you haven't hit in camp, and then you got to go up against 330-pound offensive linemen that are going to pull, and they're actually very athletic, and they're going to run the ball down your throat, and Penn State loses their best defensive lineman in camp to a torn ACL. I did not know what to expect. They were very much bend, don't break. But I think, yes, they played a vanilla defense. But last year, about the last 4 games of the year, they really started to pick it up. Brent Pry is one of the best coordinators in the country. He's got head coach written all over him. So to go into Wisconsin, and every year we always hear about, hey, the Badgers, they're a quarterback away from being the real deal. I've been hearing that for like 12 years now, and it never happens. But to go and beat
they even had Russell Wilson and couldn't win a national championship.
They had Russell Wilson. They went undefeated with, who was it, Bart Houston in the regular season until they faced someone like that.
On that one.
Yeah, I mean, just go down the list. Jim Sorgi, Tyler Donovan, John Stocco. Like, we just go through these. Oh, this is going to be the guy that gets it done.
I thought Graham Mertz was supposed to be better than this.
He was 4 stars.
Wisconsin on Saturday.
Well, they played a respectable, good opponent. Normally Wisconsin starts out the year 6-0 until they have to face an Iowa or get that early test. But this is what the Big Ten decided to do. You're going to open with a road game or a conference game.
Well, that's the thing too. They're at Camp Randall.
Nooner.
This is a game. I think it was tied going into the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And you've got the fans jumping up and down for the first time in over a year. I mean, I'm not a Wisconsin or a Penn State fan. I had chills up and down my arm watching this game. It was incredible. And I'm like, there's no way Wisconsin's not winning this game, feeling that sort of momentum and energy going into the fourth quarter, and they still couldn't find a way to muster any offense. So hats off to Penn State. They must have done something right.
They got it done. It's like I said, a momentum-based program under James Franklin. Last year, they lose to Indiana week 1. Boom. I mean, it went down. They got the big win a couple years ago against Ohio State, and that launched everything back up. So for a Penn State team, I don't think they're a playoff contender, but a New Year's Six Bowl contender. And, hey, they always play Ohio State tough. Check the scores under James Franklin. They are always very competitive with Ohio State. So that game's at the Shoe this year, so it could be pretty tough. But if you can go into that game with undefeated or with just 1 loss, things could get really interesting there.
They're going to have their hands full this year because that Ohio State team is no jokes. I think C.J. Stroud is the real deal. He's an absolute baller. Chris Olave at wide receiver. I cannot wait to watch.
Choose your fighter with Ohio State. That's what it is.
They're so good. Almost as good as Alabama is. I mean, I thought Miami would at least show up to that football game. They looked like a high school team. I thought it was the Bishop Sycamore out there at one point. With that game, did you think that? I mean, we didn't know exactly what to expect. We know Alabama is going to crank out those 5-star guys, but until they step on the field, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. But they have reloaded all of the players from their running backs to their wide receivers to their quarterback, and they've put first-round talent in the draft the last couple of years. It just looks like they're right back on track. And I don't know if I should sell my Miami stock or if we should just applaud Alabama for doing what they do. But your thoughts on the way that played out?
Well, I wasn't really surprised with how that game went because let's remember this Miami team last year at the end of the year before the bowl game, they gave up 600 yards to North Carolina, over 60 points in that game. it's not like this was a very good defense at the end of the year. And then the first half against Oklahoma State in the Cheez-It Bowl, I mean, they got run up and down the field. So this Miami defense had some holes. And then you go face an Alabama team that does have a new offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien. But how they said it, it's not like Bill O'Brien's coming into Alabama to install his offense. He basically just takes over Steve Sarkisian, says, we'll keep the same terminology. I'll add a couple wrinkles here and there. And when you have a guy like Bryce Young, who's been in the program, who sat under Mac Jones for a year, learned the system, learned how everything goes, it really didn't surprise me that Alabama did that. Miami, to me, it was an overachieving year for the most part last year, because if you watch them, it was just how much can De'Aaron King do? They never really had those other guys, aside from a Will Mallory or a Brevin Jordan or a Mike Harley. It was always, okay, we have to rely on De'Aaron King to win every game for us. The guy's coming off a torn ACL. He's playing in that game against Alabama, that defense. It was just a recipe for disaster from Miami, and it was.
And it was absolutely a complete disaster. And then they're down 38-10, I think the score was at the time. They get a turnover, an actual turnover, not one that was then overturned like happened maybe a quarter earlier. And they whip out the turnover chain. And I'm like, Miami, have some self-respect. What are you doing? That could have been the low moment of Hurricane football history.
What's the rule? What's the rule on turnovers? Like when you bring it out now? Like when's the time?
I think you need to be in the game, and that's and that is subjective. You know, there is no perfect number. I'm not going to say, well, if you're down by 15, then it's a no, but if you're down by 14, then it's a yes. But you got to just read the room. I mean, have some sense of awareness in that moment, deep into the game where you are not at all competitive. You just happen to get a turnover. Is not the time to open that box and start flaunting to the crowd. It is just. It's a joke. Like that wouldn't happen on the other sideline. There's no way. No. If they're getting blown out, they're down by 28 at some point in the second half. Nick Saban would smack these guys silly. Brian Kelly would execute them, apparently. We'll get to that comment later. But yes. No, I mean, I is there, I guess, if you're going to do it, do you have to do it all the time? Does it have to be clean across the board, in your opinion? If you have a turnover chain, then you whip it out with a turnover, and there's no blurring that line of when it's appropriate and when it's not. How do you view that?
So I view it as just like it's on brand for Miami. Like it is a good program.
That sounded like a backhanded comment.
No, and I mean, like let's look at what Miami is. Miami is not in the not central in the country. It's a beach town. It's entertainment. It's glitzy. It's glamorous. The kids that go there, they're vibing in Miami. You know, if you're really good at Miami, I mean, we've seen you get into clubs, you get preferential treatment. It's not like you're going to a college dive bar and getting in. You're getting into 11 and mangoes and all the like. You're a superstar down there, and that's what people want to see. They want to see a show when they come and watch Miami football. Yeah, they want to see a win. And the team back in the 80s in the heyday, they won games, but they put on a show. And I think if for Miami, I'm just looking at it from their, philosophy. Hey, we're going to win games, but we also got to put on a show. It's not like the athletic director and Manny Diaz is saying that. I just think that's on brand for Miami. And it doesn't look good when you do it, but oh well, it happens.
I do think it's sort of indicative of where you are right now, that it is more about it's about the show and bringing the U back from a swagger standpoint, but not bringing the U back from wins and losses and living and dying by the record that is next to your name and your ranking. And those are the things that will really, I mean, the swagger will follow. You're in Miami. You've got the alums and all of that to support. You've got Ed Reed on the sideline. I don't think you need to do that. I'm all for that hokey stuff. I don't mind the turnover chain.
Yeah,
I mind the turnover chain in that moment. Felt like you were just basically saying we accept defeat, but we're still going to go out there and have fun. And that's okay if you're playing in a little league game, but not if you're opening the season against the top ranked school in the country. You were at Florida State, Notre Dame. I've been so excited to talk to you about this. Start with the Bobby Bowden aspect of it, because I think as the game goes along, we have an incredible football game, and you have the story of McKenzie Milton and some of the questionable moments with Mike Norvell. It's easy to lose sight of what that night was really about in Tallahassee. How was that handled from somebody that was there from the moment you walked into the stadium till the moment you left?
Beautiful. It was beautiful. And I'm not trying to make it about a me or a perspective like that, but the only thing that I had close to Bobby Bowden was Joe Paterno as a point of reference. And obviously we know how that is gone, how he's been immortalized. So to see a coach that is this legend, that is such an icon in college football, be celebrated and loved, and you have players, and then we get up to the press box and they show the mural to Ann and she's crying, and it's just a beautiful moment. They do the tributes, the hats. That's one of the beautiful things about college football that I think you can really only compare to baseball. Is college football loves its history and embraces its history so much. And even though it is a evolving sport right before our eyes, they still like to hold on to history, I think, a lot of times in appropriate ways. That was an appropriate touch to remind everyone, yes, Florida State's down right now, but you don't have Florida State football without Bobby Bowden and what he did for this program. It really was something powerful. And to me, not knowing a ton about Bobby Bowden, you knew him as a coach, and he was kind of Spurrier-esque, would give his little jabs every now and then and say things. But the man that Bobby Bowden was, really, to me, is what stood out. I knew the numbers. I knew how many games he'd won in ACC and national championships. But to hear people talk about the type of person he was, just walking through and hearing fans tell stories about when they were at Florida State and they'd see Bobby and he'd come up to them and just start talking about how they were doing in classes. And they're like, Bobby Bowden, why is he talking to me? That's just the type of person he was. I didn't knew that. So to be immersed in that was really cool to see.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Joe Paterno side. It's really sad the way that he meant so much to Penn State, and he meant so much to the state of Pennsylvania in the game of college football. Mm-hmm. And you can't avoid the stain that is the end of his tenure. I make no excuses for the way that all went down. It really is amazing that you had Bobby Bowden, who was side by side with him throughout their coaching careers, that made it as far as he did. It's hard to last that long in anything and still keep your reputation about you. Even for Joe Paterno, who I believe is a good person that made a massive mistake. Bobby Bowden had nothing, really. I mean, outside of what would, I guess, be determined now as recruiting violations, but who doesn't do that?
No. The recruiting violations really cool. Get you 30 for 30 now. So,
for sure.
Kind of a nice trade-off.
Those are the things you get to talk about when you do touchdown club appearances. So exactly. These guys, that's just part of the game at this point. So the game itself, then, I was not expecting Florida State to really hang in this one. If I was being honest with myself, I thought it was possible just because you could say this about most teams in week one of college football. You're breaking in new teams, new quarterback for Notre Dame. And so you don't know exactly what to expect, but talent for talent, Notre Dame's been pumping out NFL prospects for the last few years, and FSU's gotten away from that. It's hard to win games at a high level when you don't have that level of talent. We saw Kyle Hamilton, safety for Notre Dame. Yep. Dude's insane. I mean, that's probably a top 10 pick right there, and he played like it. But Florida State hung around at the point that they're going into the half, and all of a sudden you're like, this is a very real game at this point. Did you think McKenzie Milton was going to walk out of the locker room as the quarterback for the final two quarters of that game?
No.
What made you think that at that time?
I thought at that point, so my thought was Jordan Travis was going to start, and he did, because it was a smart move. He has been in the system. He has played in the last 3 years. It's not a shot at McKenzie Milton. Let's just call it what it is. And Florida State's offensive line is not very good. He also played very well against Notre Dame last year when they went to South Bend. So I figured that McKenzie Milton would play because I thought Notre Dame would key on Travis, know the game plan. Florida State would get themselves into a hole, and you would have to play a McKenzie Milton. But as the game went on, and it was clear that Travis was still in there after the picks, after the fourth down, turnover on downs deep in their own territory, I thought it was going to be his game. I didn't think it meant McKenzie Milton was never going to see the field this season. Florida State's offensive line is not very good. By all indications, Travis has played better in practice, and that's what a lot of people that are around that program say. And it just seemed like he was going to be the guy for that game. And then everything went crazy with 10 minutes to go in the game. And you can't write that. You can't write an ending like that. And it was
if I was writing the ending, FSU would have won the game personally. But yes.
I get that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was, Brandon, you know this more than me. I got here in 2018. I never saw Milton play. So that entire season, when he was playing in 18, I never covered a game. I covered the Fiesta Bowl where it was Daryl Mack. So I never saw the effect of McKenzie Milton playing quarterback. And last night, or Sunday night, I should say, maybe it was a mix of the anticipation, the crowd, whatever it may be. That kid is magic. And you
Absolutely.
get him on the field, and it's just different. Some players are practice players, and they're really good, and they know things in and out. And then you got gamers. And you know what type of kid McKenzie Milton is. That's not saying he doesn't work hard in practice, but you give that kid the ball in a tough spot, he's going to make a play. The crowd is on its feet. I mean, Jordan Travis said he got chills. You got chills in the press box. Mike Bianchi said he teared up. I just smiled the whole time. Like when he completed that first pass, I literally started laughing out loud because it's like, damn, this kid did this. He shouldn't be playing.
I imagine there was a lot of cheering in the press box. I know that's a big no-no, but in a moment like that, I don't know how you guys couldn't get emotional or have some sort of reaction in seeing him do that. It's an incredible story for anybody.
It's the wave of sports. It's the wave of emotion that sports brings. He hits that first pass. And you're like, oh, man, he did this. Then the drive continues. And what really got me was the throw on 3rd and 11 to Keyshawn Helton, or is down inside the 5-yard line. He makes that throw. And you're like, he did that off his back foot, perfectly over top of the linebacker, in stride, gets a guy in double coverage for a first down. Like, how the hell does this kid do? That's a timing throw. That's everything. And he did it. And the crowd went nuts. And I was like, dude, this shouldn't be happening. By all accounts, that this kid should probably had things gone a different way. When the injury happened, if it was in East Carolina, who knows if he would have got to a good trauma center with a great staff on hand. He may not have his leg, but he was in Tampa and Tampa General, and those surgeons did a fantastic job. He's rehabbed properly. He's had great teams around him, and he's a man of his word. He said to Dr. Levy, I'm coming back. I don't know when it's going to be, but I'm coming back. He's a man of his word. He grinded. He got to this point, and he did it with complete class. That's the most impressive thing about me. McKenzie Milton's never been a me guy, and we all wanted to shove a camera in his face and write stuff down, and you tell us about it. And he was, I just want to go out and do it. Like he was very humble about it, and to see that and to just let his actions, not his words, not having to tell you, I'm built different, I'm going to do this, was really incredible.
And the fact that wasn't even really supposed to happen.
No, it wasn't.
I didn't even catch that in the moment that Jordan Travis was being taken out of the game because of his helmet getting knocked off, not because Mike Norvell, like many of us watching at home, had finally seen enough of Jordan Travis. It was amazing. And this is where I find myself conflicted when we're talking about the way that this game was strategized in the moment. I thought Mike Norvell clearly had a great game plan coming in. And he is part of the reason, a huge part of the reason they were even in that game at any point of significance. But then when it becomes obvious that Jordan Travis is not that guy, you've got to hand the reins over to McKenzie Milton. For that to happen by accident, and it only took one play for Mike Norvell to know what we all knew watching at home. This was supposed to be the McKenzie Milton show. Not because of the story, Luke, but because of what you said about the magic, about understanding how to make the right throw at the right time, how to read the defense. And I thought one of the most impressive plays for me was when he had that bad snap that went 5 yards behind him. He goes and grabs it, immediately turns around. How many times this weekend did we see a quarterback do something like that? Sam Howell did it on Friday night. Turn around and just heave it in the direction of a wide receiver, probably turns into a turnover. Such a heady play for a guy that hasn't played in over a year to grab the football and throw it out of bounds and save the game. That is McKenzie Milton. He's a smart quarterback. And at that moment in the game, you needed a guy that understood how to play the position at the very least, because Jordan Travis is a running back playing quarterback. I'm just glad the way that it worked out. It's amazing that it took that long for Mike Norvell to figure it out.
I will say this, though, with Jordan Travis. And I think the narrative can easily be, oh, my gosh, he didn't play well. He turned the ball over a ton. It's obvious Milton's the better quarterback. Like that's an easy narrative. He did get it to 10 in the fourth quarter. He got it to 10. He led a nice drive down the field, to cut it to 10. And he had a nice run to get it to midfield when his helmet did pop off. So he had played well. Now, the turnovers were a killer. He's not the downfield thrower, even though he had a beautiful touchdown pass.
He did.
But Mike Norvell, like that's the thing. Notre Dame, and you can say this, no one's seen McKenzie Milton. They've seen Jordan Travis, and no one knows what to expect. Now, I think it gets a little harder in the season once you get some tape on him. How do you scheme for McKenzie Milton? Because he's going to be the guy. I mean, he is going to be the guy this season. It's just a matter of when. But when you haven't seen someone in 3 years, it's, okay, can he run? Can he step into throws? What can he do? So he did benefit from that. I'm not taking anything away from his performance. But I think Mike Norvell made the right call. But when Milton comes in, you just say, okay, it's when the lights come on, when you got to push the chips to the center, this kid is just different, and he's a difference maker at quarterback.
Yeah, that game was just, it was so special to watch. And even if
Amazing.
they don't come out with the win, it does feel like Florida State is at least pointed in the right direction. And while I question some of the decision-making in the game, you've got to give credit to Mike Norvell. He has crushed the transfer portal. Some of the guys, Jeremiah Johnson on the defensive line.
That guy,
insane.
he couldn't sniff the field at Georgia. Like that's first off, that's how good Georgia is.
And they are that good, yes.
I mean, he was the best defensive player on the field. It wasn't even close. And just that guy is going to be playing on Sundays. It was incredible to watch.
He is Luke Hetrick. You can catch him on Spectrum News 13, all part of that Spectrum Sports 360 coverage. You guys do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
And now, whether you're willing to say it or not, Luke, you are the head honcho. You're the top of the ladder. You're the final rung. I'm just top of the food chain that is Spectrum Sports.
I'm just the oldest person. I'm not even the oldest person, but I'm just the one that's been there the longest. That's all it is. No, I think we got a great team in place, and I appreciate the kind words. And I think, for the 3 years that I've been here in Orlando, I've worked very hard, not to make a name for myself, but just to establish the connection, establish myself with the community. Hopefully that shows. I want it to show in the product that we put out when I'm on camera for 30 minutes talking sports. My philosophy, Brandon, and you know this, but for the people that don't know, it is you and me. We're having a beer at a bar. That's what it is, and that
should be.
Or a mocktail if you don't want to drink. I don't care. Do what you want to do, but
order whatever you want at this.
Order what you want. Yeah. Get some saucy nugs. I don't care what it is, but yeah, have fun. That's my philosophy with sports. But Orlando has been great to me. News 13 has been fantastic. It has been a place that I didn't know where I was going to end up when I'm a young kid in your career search, and I've loved it for what it is. It's been a rewarding part to my life, to my personal life. And, I'm just excited that we have a new member in Marissa Silvis, and Bree McNaught is obviously very good at what she does as well. But I want to usher in new people into this community as well, because Orlando sports needs people that are passionate like you, Brandon, that want to talk about sports, that want to cover these teams, that want to treat it like it is New York City or LA, where people, well, not so much LA, but where people care about sports and are totally invested in it. That's what this city needs and it deserves. And thankfully, we have people like you that do that and pour their heart and soul into this stuff. And that's kind of what I want to do as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Humbled. I agree. I think this is a great sports city, and this is, it's really cool to be side by side with you and watch your career kind of grow at this stage, because
vice versa.
We're both relatively young in the business, in a sports market that is also relatively young when you compare it to some of those bigger markets. And I think we're 10 years away from being right up there. Perception wise, it's just a matter of how it happens. I mean, UCF to the Big 12 is part of that progression. And who knows what that leads to in the future. So who knows what the future has to bring, but Luke, hopefully we're here every step of the way, giving all of you, our listeners and our viewers, that coverage that, as Luke says, you so richly deserve. Luke, you do a phenomenal job. I have never had a conversation with you that I haven't enjoyed, whether it's on the air or off. So keep up the good work. How can people find you at your variety of platforms?
On Twitter, it is, as Brandon said earlier, at LH Sports TV. Also, every night, 10:30 on My News 13, Spectrum Sports 360. That is not just once a week. It is every single night, 30 minutes, the best sports show in town. And because it's the best sports show, that's why we have people like Brandon on there as often as we can. So, yeah, tune in tonight. A lot of good stuff that we have going on. It's football, high school football, college, NFL starting. It's the best time of the year, man.
This is
Christmas.
fantastic.
Love it. Yeah.
And we're a month away from college football, NFL, NBA starting back up. We get a look at Jalen Suggs in a Magic uniform, baseball playoffs. It's insane. It's like drinking water out of a fire hose. And we'll have you every step of the way. You can follow me as well at Brandon Kravitz on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my burgeoning TikTok channel as well. How about that, Luke? Making TikTok work.
Back in our day, TikTok was a Kesha song, and look at us now.
We've really come a long way. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been another edition of the Brandon Kravitz Podcast. That's awesome.
You're the man, buddy. That was fun.